The Center for Puerto Rican Studies recently published a report, The State of Puerto Ricans 2013, which is a collection of essays that talks about the conditions of the Puerto Rican community in the U.S. and in Puerto Rico. It is based on the latest data that is available to researchers and to the public. The data is mostly based on the American Community Survey and the Puerto Rican Community Survey. An important essay in this collection addresses the view that there is a brain drain in Puerto Rico. Centro researchers Carlos Vargas-Ramos and Kurt Burson discussed this issue.
Is there a brain drain in Puerto Rico?
Well, in studying the research from the latest ACS, American Community Survey data from the U.S. Census Bureau, it actually looks like there's not enough evidence to say that there is a brain drain indeed.
First of all, what is a brain drain?
The concept of a brain drain is actually very specific. A brain drain is referring to a situation in which the members of a population that are the most educated or experienced in the labor force are leaving the island in a way that's disproportionate to the population that remains. The idea that there is not a brain drain per se shouldn't detract from the main problem, which is that there is an increasing rate of out-migration from the island.
So the fact is that there may be a brain drain, but there's a brain drain because there's a lung drain, there's a heart drain, there's a gut drain. People in Puerto Rico are leaving, they're leaving mostly for the United States, but professionals, which is the concern that most of the press and the media in Puerto Rico is paying attention to, are not living disproportionately to their proportion in the labor force in Puerto Rico.
That's right. In the report that's found in the book, I actually talk about several demographic issues relating to the group that's migrating. So between the years of 2000 and 2011, I took an average and we looked at things like the age of the migrants, the employment status of the migrants, the educational status of the migrants as well. In looking at the educational attainment of the migrants and the labor status of the migrants, that group actually doesn't look like what you would expect from a brain drain, where you would see that the most educated are leaving and the most well-trained are leaving. In fact, whereas in Puerto Rico, the entire population has about 5% that are with a graduate degree or higher, the out-migrating group had around the same or even less than that. And then in looking at the industry in which they worked, the ones that were in the professional industries, such as doctors, lawyers, scientists, were actually underrepresented compared to the population that was that still remained.
So in fact, there is not such a brain drain. There are professionals living the island, but not in a greater proportion than the numbers in the labor force in Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
If anybody is living disproportionately, it's in the semi-skilled trades, the construction industry, perhaps mechanics, perhaps paraprofessionals who find themselves unable to find jobs in greater proportions in Puerto Rico than they would if they had migrated out of the island.
When you have out-migration at such a high rate from all corners of society, it actually sort of leads into a vicious cycle where you have out-migration because of a suffering economy, but the more that people leave, the worse the economy will get. And so you have this continuing. So I think that the priority for policymakers should be to address this outflow.
The fact that the population is decreasing in Puerto Rico will have negative repercussions throughout, just by the sheer numbers. The fact that you have fewer people in the economy, you have fewer people consuming and spending money and making money circulate throughout that economy.
Right, right. And what you would also see is that as the people leave, that represents a loss of resources for the government in terms of tax collection. So you will also see one of two things. You either see that the taxes are raised on those that remain, or that services will be cut. And indeed, that's what you're finding. Mm-hmm.
What do we see among those people who leave the island and arrived in the United States?
What the data is actually showing is that that the migration is very driven by economic reasons. You find the labor participation on the island is close to 50%, but the ones that are moving are actually 10% higher than that. So it would suggest that these people are motivated by finding work. Unfortunately, what we're also finding is that within that first year of migrating to the United States, these migrants have an unemployment rate of 25%, which is actually much higher than the 17% which averaged for the island at the time.
So they're living without jobs, and they're not finding jobs right away when they come to the United States.
Right. It seems that a lot of the migrants are just deciding that they're gonna, they're gonna look for new opportunities in the States, regardless of whether or not they've actually found something already. Also, looking at the flow, based on their age groups, the largest percentage of that migrating group was those under 18 years old. So that suggests that these people are moving as entire family units.
And these folks coming out of the island recently may be the nucleus of new Puerto Rican settlements in the United States, as it is happening oftentimes in Florida or other places in the southeast of the United States. Nevertheless, we have a very dynamic migration, not just coming from Puerto Rico, but also from other places in the United States that are making the presence of Puerto Ricans much more visible than it may have been when they only remained in the Northeast. Right now you have Puerto Ricans in virtually every state and every county of the country. So this type of research is captured in our latest report, State of Puerto Ricans 2013, which is available from our website. You can reach our website by going to centropr.hunter.cuny.edu. Thank you.